Coming to you from the Hudson Media Group studio, this is Talking Politics. And I am New Jersey's premier, now 10-time award-winning journalist, top Latino as voted on by the Latino Spirit Online magazine, along with the United States Latino Affairs Initiative. And certainly I'll continue to be the weapon of mass disruption in Garden State media, because my level of honesty, folks, now more than ever, is truly necessary in this era of journalistic deception. That's right, it's me, Fernando Uribe. Welcome back, everyone, to the season premiere of Talking Politics here with the Hudson Media Group. Hope you all had an outstanding summer. I know I did. It's the fall season. With 40 days to go until Election Day, there's a lot to talk about, so let's get started. Here's what I'm thinking about right now. Folks, as I just mentioned, there's 40 days to go until the 2024 presidential election. And while all 435 House seats are up for grabs nationally, as well as a good amount of Senate seats throughout the United States, obviously the big talk is Kamala Harris and Donald Trump. And where you stand on this specific election, quite frankly, folks, I think could decide what happens to the United States for decades to come. So I'm not being hyperbolic here when I say that I would argue this is perhaps the most consequential election in my adult life. And we look at what our choices are. We look at the sitting vice president of the United States, Kamala Harris, who, along with President Joe Biden, has created perhaps one of the worst economic climates in recent memory. Now, again, let me just sort of give you a preface of what the context is here. Again, when we look at certain metrics, again, folks, this is not me, twisting facts or twisting numbers, but let's go at some of the metrics here. All right? When we look at the cost of gasoline, we looked at over 46% of an increase since January 20th of 2021. We look at natural gas up 28%. We look at used automobiles up 26%. The cost of beef is up 20%. The cost of pork, 14%. Chicken, 8%. Eggs, 11%. Cost of milk, up 4%. Coffee, 4%. Baby food, 7%. And even electricity is up 6%. Now, folks, what's interesting is that many on the left and many within the sort of national establishment of the Democrat Party would tell you that, well, it's inflation, it's COVID. Well, folks, what's happened is the establishment media, obviously that is always in bed with the Democrat Party, has been pretty much covering for Joe Biden and for Kamala Harris. What did we learn over the summer, folks, during the first debate between Donald Trump and Joe Biden? Yes, Joe Biden has been cognitively declining. We've seen it for years. The debate didn't have to prove that to us, but we were reassured that that was the reality. And what we've seen from Joe Biden since January of 2021 has been outright embarrassing. Now, so yes, I'm sure many of you on the left, and whether you identify as a progressive, as a Democrat, as a leftist, or as being woke, whatever it is, I'm sure you have your reservations about Donald Trump. But folks, we have not seen the cognitive decline on Donald Trump the way we've seen it with Joe Biden. And we saw it on full display during the debate. So much so that the Democrat Party, again, without having a primary, without having any sort of election, pretty much pushed out the 46th president and substituted him with the sitting vice president. Now, as many Kamala Harris supporters would want to sort of manipulate the truth and convince you otherwise, she's a part of this administration. Now, some of you might say, well, the vice president doesn't have any real power. That's not true. If you look at legislation that's been signed, such as the Inflation Reduction Act, when it came to a vote on the floor of the United States Senate, after it passed through the House, guess who was the tie-breaking vote? The president of the U.S. Senate, which constitutionally is the vice president. So when we look at the Inflation Reduction Act, which essentially didn't really reduce inflation, Kamala Harris had a hand in that. So what people might say, well, the sitting vice president doesn't have any real power. Well, that's not true again. When Joe Biden withdrew in such a disgraceful manner from Afghanistan, guess who was the last person in the room that he was consulting with when it came to that embarrassing decision? That's right, folks. Kamala Harris, the vice president. Of course, it's Joe Biden's call. He's the commander-in-chief. But folks, let's not get it twisted. What we have seen for the last 3.5 years has been an abysmal economic record, and it's been an abysmal foreign policy record. Once again, whether it's the embarrassing and disgraceful withdrawal from Afghanistan or continuing to send billions and billions of dollars to Ukraine. Folks, and let me be very clear, because I've said this on previous shows and I'll say it again. I could care less about Ukraine, okay? There are not enough F's that I could give about Ukraine. This idea that the Russian military is this sort of global power, once again, that's a lie. Folks, Russia invaded Ukraine in the spring of 2022. Folks, it's the fall of 2024. Is Vladimir Putin any closer to taking over Kiev or the rest of Ukraine? Of course not. Which again reinforces the reality that the Russian army is, quite frankly, a fraction of what it once was during the Cold War. Okay, so this idea that, well, we have to be careful, we have to aid Ukraine with weapons and money and helping a corrupt regime under the administration of President Zelensky somehow is the only thing that's stopping Vladimir Putin from spreading westward into Europe. That's not true. Vladimir Putin's not going to go into Poland. He's not going to go into Germany. He's not going to go all the way out west into England and France and Italy. Okay? There's a reason why the Russian military has struggled against the Ukrainian military. Yes, I get it. But folks, at the end of the day, we need to worry about Americans. We have veterans sleeping on the street. We have school districts that require more money. We have resources that could be better served spending it on American citizens, not Ukrainian citizens. And isn't it funny how many on the left in this country talk about, oh, how racist it is to preserve border walls? Because again, folks, I'm not an attorney, but I did take constitutional law in grad school. Many thanks to Dr. Elizabeth Hull at Rutgers Newark for her class, which I got an A in. And one of the things that the executive branch is responsible for is the preservation of our borders. You can read it in Article 4, Section 4 of the United States Constitution. So when Joe Biden and Kamala Harris took the oath of office on January 20th, 2021, right there and then, they have not upheld their oath of office. But many on the left will tell you that, oh, preserving border walls is racist and preserving borders is xenophobic. Well, isn't that what we're doing in Ukraine? Isn't their whole premise to preserve borders there, to make sure that any hostile aggression doesn't cross their borders? But that's okay. And we can send billions of dollars to Ukraine to do that. But here in the United States, sure, trying to preserve our borders, trying to preserve our sovereignty, that's somehow seen as racist and bigoted and xenophobic. Do you see the hypocrisy here? But folks, that's one of many things that remind us that Kamala Harris is not qualified to be president of the United States. Now, I get it that many of you would say, well, we lived through 4 years of Donald Trump, and this is what I didn't like about it. Okay, cool. You're entitled to your opinion. What you're not entitled to, though, is your own facts. And when we look at economic progress, when we look at our 401ks, we look at the cost of fuel, when we look at what we were doing in regards to tariffs, folks, you don't have to like the man. But you know what? When it comes to our pocketbooks and affording groceries, affording whether or not we go on vacations, whether we fly, whether we can lease a new vehicle, whether we can buy new electronic items for our kids as they start the new school year. Folks, the economic record's there. Now, I'll be the first one to tell you that Donald Trump, from a character perspective, leaves a lot to be desired. He's cheated on all of his wives, certainly. We have seen, from a morality perspective, the guy obviously leaves a lot to be desired as well. But I'm not voting for a guy because of his morals or, whatever sort of moral compass you superficially want to establish. I'm voting for a guy that got results. And if you reelect him, he'll continue getting results, as opposed to his opponent who hasn't gotten any results, who, let's be honest, I won more primary votes than Kamala Harris. And the amount of primaries that she's won, well, you can count them on one hand. Then again, if that hand doesn't have any fingers, then there you go, there's your answer. But folks, that's a decision we have coming up on November the 5th. And not just, as I mentioned before, but let's look at, obviously, Kamala Harris's vision for what the United States should be. If you looked at her as a United States Senator, when you're more to the left of Bernie Sanders, that should scare the hell out of you. I know it does me. But of course, what has Kamala Harris stood for? Abolishing ICE, opening the border, which she has. She openly campaigned and championed the motto of defunding the police, so much so that as we were watching cities burn to the ground 4 summers ago during the summer of 2020, right, all in the name of, let's be honest, glorifying a career criminal like George Floyd, what do we see? We saw Kamala Harris, then Senator Harris, openly promote a fund which you can contribute to help spring all of these looters and these rioters out of jail. That's what Kamala Harris is. Obviously, during her time in California as not just also a district attorney, but also as attorney general, was the release of violent offenders. Obviously, she's very much about the Green New Deal. Folks, let's be honest. Have we seen what's happened to California under the administration of Governor Gavin Newsom? How the power grids have been failing miserably? How you have to sort of make a decision whether or not to charge your electric cars or turn on the air conditioning. And we all know, folks, what the temperatures get like in California, right? Okay. Or confiscating guns from legal gun owners. She said it right from the get-go. She would sign an executive order on day one of her presidency to do that. As we all know, that's not possible. Joe Biden even refuted that during the debate in 2020. Right? And also, of course, she believed in it during her time as Attorney General in California, and she certainly believed in it as a United States Senator. Sort of taxpayer-funded transgender surgeries for illegals. Folks, again, these are things that, if you like them on the left, that's fine. But folks, is this what you want for our country for 4 more years? I get it, you don't have to like Donald Trump, but you can at least acknowledge that some policies worked. And to even compound the issue about reproductive rights. I don't know about you folks, I'm getting sick and tired of that having been weaponized every election cycle. Because here's the truth about the Dobbs decision from 2 summers ago. All it did was relegate the decision back to the states. Now again, if you all took civics and American history or constitutional law, you might remember something called the Bill of Rights. And in the Bill of Rights is the 10th Amendment. And the 10th Amendment is what stipulates federalism. And that's the autonomy of states' rights. Rights that are not provided by the federal government are preserved by the states. Now, of course, different states have taken different measures when it comes to reproductive rights and when to terminate an abortion. But here in New Jersey, folks, it continues to be weaponized by the left, by insufferable cat ladies, and annoying feminists. But here's the truth about reproductive rights in New Jersey, for example. If you're a woman, you get, again, a biological woman with a uterus, and you get knocked up tomorrow, guess what? In New Jersey, it's been codified into law. So you have the option to terminate that pregnancy up until the 9th month during your pregnancy. That's not me being hyperbolic, folks. That's fact. Now, again, it's September. Of course, ladies have had that crazy summer. Now the fall comes. Thursday night NFL resumes right on Thursday nights. You go out Friday, Saturday, Sunday fun day for NFL. You're drinking. A lot of ladies wake up Monday mornings full of regrets. And maybe next to guys that they probably don't like waking up next to. Well, guess what, folks? Plan Bs are readily available. I know what they look like. I've bought a good share of them in my adult life. I'll probably have to continue buying them. I know exactly where they're located behind every counter, at every Duane Reade, every CVS, or every Walgreens. So what exactly are you bitching and moaning about when it comes to your reproductive rights? Now, again, do you live in Tennessee? Do you live in Arkansas? Do you live in, Mississippi? No, you don't. Now, again, those legislatures can decide to do what they want. Right? Didn't we always used to hear, my body, my choice? So for people like me that are unvaccinated, that were always vilified about using that mantra, well, guess what? Let's see how those states govern reproductive rights. And if you care so much about what's going on in Tennessee, do me a favor. Instead of bitching and moaning on social media in New Jersey, why don't you catch a flight, why don't you relocate, and work on campaigns to perhaps replace state assemblymen and women and state senators in those respective legislatures. And when you do, maybe you can change how those states address reproductive rights. But in the meantime, in New Jersey and across the river in New York, women have it as good as it gets when it comes to reproductive freedom. So once again, are you just bitching to live, or are you just living to bitch? But that's what this election cycle, folks, is really amplifying. So really, when we think about the choices we have a United States of America that obviously, again, coddles illegals, chooses to continue giving billions of dollars to other regimes, and not addressing the rights of American citizens. Or we have the option of a 45th president, soon to be the 47th president, that again, you don't have to like him, but a lot of his policies worked, as much as you don't want to admit it. Now, folks, you have options. Certainly, if you don't want to choose any of the 2 mainstream parties, you have the Green Party, Libertarian Party, as well as other parties that are on the ballot effectively. But folks, the answer is clear on November the 5th. I think we know where the country is going to be better off on January 20th, 2025. And that's what I'm thinking about right now. And I have some local stories for your consideration. And a shout out to John Hines, fellow Rutgers alum and a member of the Pinnacle, for his reporting on this story as the editor of the Hudson County View. Very interesting op-ed released shortly after the announcement of Wardy Councilman James Solomon run for mayor in 2025 for Jersey City. A very, very interesting editorial here that was submitted by Jersey Police Superior Officers Association President Captain Pavel Wojciewicz, and he explains why he believes Wardy Councilman James Solomon is not the right fit for mayor. Now, I'm not going to give you the entire column here, but he writes us something interesting. As a progressive Democrat, Solomon's policies, while perhaps well-intentioned, pose serious risks to the safety and prosperity of Jersey City. Across the nation, we've witnessed the destructive consequences of progressive leadership. Take Denver, Colorado, for example. Over the past decade, Denver's once vibrant community has been significantly undermined by progressive policies that promised reform, but instead led to a sharp increase in crime, which is true, rampant homelessness, which is evident, and a steep decline in the overall quality of life. That's as clear as day. Now, the lessons from Denver are clear. Good intentions do not always equate to effective governance, especially concerning public safety. Other progressive-led cities, such as San Francisco, Portland, St. Louis, Chicago, and Seattle, have also experienced similar declines. Policies aimed at decriminalizing offenses, reducing law enforcement presence, and softening stances on homelessness have contributed to unsafe streets, deteriorating neighborhoods, and a public that no longer feels secure in their own communities. Now, Councilman Solomon's platform, though painted with appealing rhetoric of equity and reform, threatens to steer Jersey City down the same perilous path. His policies could weaken our law enforcement's ability to effectively combat crime, potentially turning our streets into a mirror image of what we see in other cities. The consequences of such an agenda would be disastrous for Jersey City and its residents, leading to a breakdown of the very system that currently keeps our city safe and prosperous. Public safety doesn't have a political party affiliation. It is a concern for every resident and business owner, and rightfully so. Safe cities ease the stresses on families and children and foster thriving businesses. Well, folks, listen, the captain's right to a certain extent because, listen, we have eyes, and we've seen what's been going on in Denver. I've visited cities like San Francisco and Los Angeles in recent years, and I can tell you that I wasn't just going to the preppy parts to get, a pedicure or a massage or a manicure. I was actually able to drive through some of the worst parts of those cities in visiting them. And I can tell you that, again, progressive policies have contributed to the decline there. Folks don't believe me. We don't have to travel 3,000 miles. Just cross one of the bridges or tunnels and go into New York City. What have we been seeing since the days of Bill de Blasio? Progressive, woke policies that have destroyed arguably the greatest city on earth. And of course, what have we been seeing in Denver? We've been seeing a massive migration of illegals into that city in Denver, Colorado. And we've been seeing that, obviously, throughout the country. Look again, no further than look across the river in Manhattan and the subsequent boroughs. Now, again, I don't know what James Solomon's policies positions are exactly about quality of life, but we'll soon see that out. We'll soon see that soon enough in the coming weeks. And we'll see where he stands on the quality of life, about accountability for police officers in Jersey City that seems to be under the microscope, and other issues that matter to Jersey City residents, as we see that the field is getting quite crowded in Jersey City as candidates are vying to be its next mayor in November of 2025. Now, for a lot of people, again, a lot of progressives that look at someone like Jim McGreevey, former governor, or former Board of Education trustee Musa Bali, Council President Joyce Waterman, of course, County Commissioner Bill O'Day, yes, it's a very diverse group of candidates thus far. And let's be honest, I feel really bad for Junior Maldonado, the Hudson County clerk, because let's be honest, that ballot might start looking like a scroll as if you're reading something during Game of Thrones. But we'll see who stays in the race and who pulls out. But I can tell you, folks, that the captain's concerns are not misplaced. Cities like Denver, San Francisco, LA, even Chicago, St. Louis, Philadelphia, have all seen their influx of progressive district attorneys and progressive policies. And to say that they haven't become absolute blank holes would be an understatement. Now, I'm not accusing James Solomon of sort of advocating for the same policies that have ruined these cities. But I can tell you that, again, being that he's a progressive, he'll have a lot of questions to answer in the coming weeks ahead. And of course, I know that much of the backlash against the captain has been, oh, he's a crazy conservative, or he's a MAGAist. No, he's none of those things. He's a concerned law enforcement officer that, quite frankly, is worried about where Jersey City is heading. Yes, if you live downtown along Newark Avenue and Pedestrian Plaza, or you live in the Heights, that's great, folks. These are areas that have been gentrified, and there's a strong police presence there. But if you live in really bad areas and dumps of Jersey City, like Greenville, the West Side, Bergen Avenue, MLK Drive, and so on and so forth, well, yeah, you have a right to be concerned, because what are police doing to keep residents safe? What is the city council doing to keep property taxes manageable? I mean, are we more concerned about pronouns than property taxes in Jersey City? We're going to find out soon enough. Whether James Solomon takes a stand on that, or Jim McGreevey does, or Bill O'Day does, or Musa Bali does, or Joyce Waterman does, that remains to be seen. But again, folks, when it comes time to looking at some of the harm that progressive policies have done to our cities, again, folks, we all have eyes. I'm not making this up. You can look for yourself. You don't have to travel 3,000 miles away. There's something called YouTube. And of course, citizen journalism, of course, there are some skeptics about that, and there are some doubts about whether or not the authenticity is actually there. But folks, there's no line. You can go across the river, if you don't believe me, and see what progressive policies have done to New York City. 8 years of Bill de Blasio, and so far 2.5 years of Eric Adams, have doomed what many used to call the greatest city on earth. Staying in Jersey City, and once again special thank you to John Hines, the editor of the Hudson County View, for his reporting on this, what seems to be quite laborious story, as Mayor Stephen Fulop encountered quite the hostile crowd at the Jersey General Square Civic Association's 4.5-hour Pompidou meeting. My God, I can't imagine being there for even 4 minutes, much less 4.5 hours. But that's what Jersey City Mayor Stephen Fulop had to endure. And it was a mostly hostile crowd, once again, that was hosted by the General Square Community Association's meeting. Concerning the Center Pompidou at Hudson County Community College multipurpose room that, quite frankly, folks, got very heated very quickly. Now, he continued that he wanted to correct misinformation, for example, noting that the Center Pompidou in Jersey would be more of a cultural institution than a museum. Also noting that NJPAC in Newark has a ton of opposition before it was built and now is one of the most successful art venues in the entire state. Fulop went over the renderings that have been circulating since he announced the latest iteration of the project via a Hudson County View editorial earlier in the year, noting that the new location at 808 Pavonia Avenue, as opposed to the Pat Side building, which was the original location. The Jersey City Council will come to be voting on this on a second reading of a 30-year tax abatement at that location for the KRE group coming up later in the week, after it cleared a first reading by a vote of 6-2 with 1 abstention earlier in the month. Now, before opening the floor up for questions, Mayor Fulop delved into some of the financial concerns regarding the project. He wanted to say, quote, the cost of taxpayers right now is roughly $1.25 million. Not a lot of money, easy to say for a mayor when it's not your own money. And $2 million from the library on expanded services. Not a decrease, but an expanded budget. So you're looking at, relative to our own budget, a very small amount, the gubernatorial hopeful stated. Quote, where does the other money come from? Okay, we took the most conservative estimate of philanthropy from our professionals, and that equated to roughly $3 million. The biggest change on why it's economically viable today versus why it was not economically viable in the past was without the governor's help, because the NJEDA grant that we were using for construction we're permitted to use for operations now. That carries the majority of the burden for the next 10 years. Moving along here, founder and artistic director, Nimbus Dance and Nimbus Arts Center, Samuel Pott, who has been outspoken about his opposition to the project, yelled out that some of the numbers were off, prompting others to shout before the JSQCA president, Tom Zupa, called for order. Now, Fulop committed to providing a 10-year budget for the project, which he followed through on, and after a bit of sort of tumultuous moaning and groaning from the audience, Pott stated the preliminary budget he received from a council member says the annual municipal cost would be $2.25 million. The mayor then responded that an updated budget factors into a special improvement district tax, which is projected to raise an additional $1 million per year. So, for example, Chris Capers, a member of LIUNA Local 3, asked why the project labor agreement, the PLA, didn't encompass the full scope of the project, to which Fulop said prior zoning decisions from past administrations did not permit such a deal to be made. Therefore, the land at 808 Pavonia Avenue, which is about 100,000 square feet, would have a PLA. Former Ward B Councilman Chris Gatson, also the principal at Lincoln High School, asked what KRE Group would have to pay annually in taxes without the abatement versus what they're paying with the abatement should the council approve it at the next meeting. The NW Financial Group principal, Michael Hanley, said that the total cost of the Pat Side iteration of the project would have been nearly $200 million over 30 years, while the cost at 808 Pavonia Avenue will be more along the lines of $60 million. Folks, listen, I'm as much a lover of the arts as anything else, and I enjoy going to the NJPAC in Newark, right near the Prudential Center, for different type of events and occasions. I've attended graduations there, comedy shows, opera, and even the Trans-Siberian Orchestra during the Christmas season. So it's a great venue to go to. And I don't disagree with Mayor Fulop and sort of his ambitions in having a venue like that available nearby in Jersey City. But like with anything else, folks, the question is always the cost. And sometimes, elected officials can be very cavalier when it's money that's not their own. So we'll find out, obviously, as Mayor Philip is running for governor next year to try to win the primary for the Democrat Party next June. Obviously, the Pompidou project is high on his agenda. Now, I'm not sure if Mayor Philip is going to put all his eggs in that political basket, but moving forward, it's going to be very, very interesting to see if the Pompidou does indeed get the funding that it needs and, quite frankly, is going to require if it's ever going to get built in Journal Square. Lastly, folks, as you can see, I'm rocking pink, and before you know it, it will be October, and that's one of my favorite times of the year, not just because it's Halloween, obviously the baseball playoffs, the NFL continues, but it's also Breast Cancer Awareness Month. And for well over 100 years, the American Cancer Society has been working hard to help families all across this country in dealing with the pain and suffering that breast cancer brings families every single year. You'll be happy to know since 2008, a professor's quest to save breasts has raised over $63,000 to benefit making strides against breast cancer right here in New Jersey. And I'll be looking forward to seeing you all on Saturday night, October the 19th, for the 2024 edition of A Professor's Quest to Save Breasts. It will take place at the world-famous Ventanas at the Modern in Fort Lee. There'll be valet parking available. We'll have just outstanding music by DJ David Jones. We'll have wonderful hosts there joining me, which include Vladimir Carrero, Jacqueline Romero, and Emily Amato. Of course, we'll be rocking pink all throughout the evening, trying to raise awareness about breast cancer and certainly everything that the American Cancer Society does to help families every single day. There'll be raffles. There's going to be many great prizes available, excellent networking opportunities, and of course, folks, we are asking for a suggested donation of $20 at the door, and all proceeds will benefit the American Cancer Society and, more importantly, the Making Strides Against Breast Cancer campaign. For more information, just Google A Professor's Quest to Save Breasts 2024, or of course, check out the flyer provided below with all the details and information. If you're interested in donating online, of course, you can check out the website there, and of course, all donations online are tax-free, safe, and of course, tax-deductible as well. Folks, let's do our part to help defeat breast cancer once and for all. So mark it on your calendars, and once again, I'll see you all on Saturday night, October the 19th, at the world-famous Ventanas at the Modern in Fort Lee, which, again, easily accessible from the George Washington Bridge, New Jersey Turnpike, Garden State Parkway, and all major local roads. Again, we'll be doing our part to help the American Cancer Society during Breast Cancer Awareness Month. And that's our show for this week. To check out all the excellent programming brought to you by the leader in independent media right here in Hudson County, the Hudson Media Group, check out their YouTube page as well as on Facebook, Instagram, and Twitter. And always remember, folks, if it's unbiased, unfiltered, and unafraid, it's always talking politics right here with the Hudson Media Group. I am New Jersey's premier and now 10-time award-winning journalist. Top Latino is voted on by the Latino Spirit online magazine, along with the United States Latino Affairs Initiative. And certainly I'll continue to be the weapon of mass disruption in Garden State media because my level of honesty, folks, now more than ever, is truly necessary in this era of journalistic deception. That's right, folks. It's me, Fernando Uribe. Once again, welcome back here to the season premiere, and we'll continue raising hell here with the Hudson Media Group every single week with Talking Politics. Again, look after your elderly neighbors, look after your children, folks. Please party responsibly, and I'll see you next time right here on Talking Politics with the Hudson Media Group. And always remember, stay classy, everyone.